No music, no witnesses, just a courthouse echo and the sound of a pen scratching paper. She signed her name first. Then he did. A pause. Then the judge cleared his throat and said, "That's it. Married. Sheila Monroe, 48 years old. Warden of Fort Hill Correctional for 12 years. A career woman. Tough. Disciplined. Always early. Never smiled unless it was earned. They said she didn't take nonsense from anyone. But that version of her, the one in a uniform with sharp eyes and a tighter jaw, was already gone. She left it behind in the prison parking lot the day she walked out with Darius Kane. Darius, 26. Inmate number 452978. Convicted of armed robbery. Served 6 years. Out on early release. Tall, lean, with a smirk that could melt ice. He wore confidence like it was stitched into his skin. Sheila met him during his second year inside. He got in a fight over phone time. Nothing serious. A busted lip. Some paperwork. She called him into her office. Expected excuses. He gave her poetry. Said he liked to write. Handed her a folded note. Not as contraband, but as art. She laughed at first, but then she kept it. Their connection grew in shadows. Never in public. He was transferred to kitchen duty. She adjusted his schedule. No one asked questions. She didn't answer them. The first time he touched her, it wasn't scandalous. It was subtle. A hand brushing hers when she passed him a clipboard. Electricity. Denial. Then more. A slip of the tongue in a staff meeting. Calling him D instead of Kane. People noticed. Whispered. She shut it down before it got loud. Then one night, the security cameras blinked off for 6 minutes during shift change. He ended up in her office. No lights. No sound. Only the hum of the air conditioner and the slam of the file cabinet she leaned against when he kissed her. It became a pattern. Secret meetings. Notes slipped into clean laundry bins. One time, she let him stay 5 minutes after lockdown. They didn't speak, just stood in the dark, her breathing heavy, his hand on the side of her face. She knew it was wrong, knew every policy she was breaking, but it didn't feel like corruption. It felt like something she'd earned, love, or the closest thing to it she'd ever tasted. He told her he wanted to be better, said she made him believe in his future again, promised he'd never use her, never lied to her. And she, Sheila the warden, believed him. When he got parole, she was waiting outside. She didn't wear her badge. She wore a red coat he said he liked. He walked straight to her, no hesitation, picked up her hand, kissed her fingers. They didn't go home. They went to the courthouse. 2 forms, a signature. That was all. The clerk raised an eyebrow when he saw the names. "You sure?" he asked. Darius smiled. "Never been more sure in my life." Sheila didn't smile back, but her eyes softened, just for a second. They walked out holding hands. The wind kicked up a little. She pulled her coat tighter. He looked up at the sky like it belonged to him now. They checked into a motel an hour later. Room 12. She paid cash. He didn't bring anything except a backpack and a charger. Inside, he talked a lot. About new beginnings. Getting out of state. Leaving the past behind. She nodded. Said she could help. He said he didn't want help. He wanted her. She tried to believe it. That night, they laid side by side on top of the covers. Not touching, just listening to the heater click. She asked if he was cold. He said no, but he didn't move closer. She asked if he loved her. He didn't answer, just kissed her forehead and rolled over. She laid there staring at the water stain on the ceiling. Something in her chest began to crack. She ignored it. The next morning, he was already dressed, sneakers on, keys in hand. Said he was going to grab breakfast. He came back 3 hours later. Smelled like cologne that wasn't his. She didn't ask, just poured him coffee. No sugar. He didn't thank her. She watched him scroll through his phone, the one she hadn't seen before. When he left it charging, she peeked. 5 messages from Jay. No names. Just miss you. When can I see you? And she doesn't know, right? Sheila put the phone back without breathing. That night, she couldn't sleep. At 3:12 a.m., She sat in the bathroom with the door shut, rereading the vows she'd written on scrap paper in her purse. She'd planned to say them at the courthouse. Change her mind at the last second. They said, "I never want to be saved. I just wanted to be chosen." The words felt foolish now. The man in her bed was no longer an inmate, no longer her secret. He was her husband, and already he felt miles away. She tried to reach out, said they should take a trip, go somewhere no one knew them. He said maybe, then asked if she still had her staff login info, just for curiosity. She froze. It hit her then, the pattern, the timing, the charm, the real reason he'd married her. But she didn't say no, not yet. She just nodded and said she'd think about it. And later that night, when he whispered that he loved her, she didn't say it back, because deep down she knew this wasn't love. It was a trap. She had walked into wearing a red coat and hope in her pocket. And by the time she realized the cage she helped him escape from and followed him outside, it was already too late. Before she was a warden, Sheila Monroe was a daughter who never spoke too loudly. Her father ran his house like a command post. Orders barked, doors slammed, silence expected. Her mother obeyed until she disappeared one morning without a note. Sheila was 15, never cried, just cleaned the dishes, folded the clothes, and never asked questions again. Discipline became survival. It got her through college. Criminal justice major, top of her class. While the others celebrated graduation with champagne and cameras, Sheila drove home alone and applied for night shifts at a juvenile detention center. Order made sense. Feelings didn't. She didn't date. She didn't party. She rose through ranks while others burned out. By 35, she was deputy warden. By 40, she had her own office with a view of the yard. The only thing missing was something she didn't name until Darius Kane showed up. His file said he was trouble. Robbery with firearm. Repeat offender. Uncooperative during intake. But when she saw him, really saw him, he looked nothing like the paper. Quiet, observant, charming in a way that felt dangerous. She told herself she was watching him out of concern, that it was professional. But late one evening, she found herself reading his intake interview again. Then again, his words stuck with her. "I'm not a bad guy, just been in bad places." And somehow she understood, because she'd spent her life building walls, and this man, this boy, really, walked right past him with nothing more than a half smile and a bruised knuckle. But that wasn't what scared her. What scared her was how easily she let him in. He made her laugh once, during a lockdown drill. He muttered under his breath, "These drills wouldn't be needed if your guards weren't so damn lazy." She looked up from her clipboard. He grinned, and for a moment, the prison disappeared. That night, she stared at the security footage twice, rewound it, watched herself smile. The next day, she assigned him to laundry duty. It gave him access to staff halls. It gave her reasons to pass him. One afternoon, he dropped the towel basket outside her office. She told him to leave it. He didn't. He knocked, said he had something to give her. A piece of paper, folded, handwritten, something I wrote, about people like us. She didn't open it until hours later. It was a poem about shadows, about being seen, about the difference between being locked in and being locked out. It made her chest ache. She kept it in her desk drawer, hidden under a file of misconduct reports. But Sheila wasn't the only one keeping things hidden. Darius had a past that didn't begin with the robbery that got him locked up. He grew up bouncing between relatives. His mother strung out, his father locked away in Angola. By the time he was 12, he knew how to pick a lock, hide a blade, and spot an undercover from a block away. But he was smart, smarter than anyone gave him credit for. At 17, he was caught running cons on older women. Promises, flattery, a soft voice late at night. One woman drained her savings to pay his rent. Another let him move in. He disappeared with her laptop and a car she never got back. But he never got caught. Not for those. His first real arrest came when a gas station clerk called the cops during a stick-up. The clerk said Darius looked calm, like he'd done it before. The DA offered a plea deal, 10 years reduced to 6. He took it, but prison didn't scare him. It trained him. He learned who to trust, how to blend in. He knew when to look vulnerable, when to look dangerous. Most of all, he knew how to study people. And when he saw Sheila Monroe walk in the yard like she didn't trust anyone, he studied her too. He noticed the way her eyes lingered on certain inmates, the way her hands stayed perfectly still when she was mad, the way she clenched her jaw when she was afraid of showing emotion. He watched, waited, adjusted. He started slipping compliments into their brief exchanges. "You run this place tighter than anyone I've seen. I heard the warden's the only reason we haven't had a riot. You ain't like the others." She said nothing, but her eyes said more. He didn't need to ask her out. He just needed her to feel seen. Needed her to feel like she wasn't just a title. It worked. He wasn't the first inmate to try it, but he was the first one she didn't shut down. Still, Darius had more going on than Sheila knew. On the outside, there was a woman named Lisa, former cellmate's cousin. She sent him money, called him baby on the phone, told him she was waiting. He told her he loved her, said they had a future. She didn't know about Sheila. Inside, Darius had favors coming his way. Extra meals, phone time, cigarettes. He traded favors, collected secrets, had a notebook hidden under his mattress full of guard schedules, key codes, names. Some said he was building an escape plan. Others said it was blackmail. Whatever it was, he was always 3 steps ahead. And Sheila, for all her intelligence, had no idea how deep she was already in. She thought she was helping him, healing him, saving him. But he wasn't drowning. He was surfing the current, waiting for the right wave to ride out. And the moment she offered him her trust, her badge, and her heart, he took them all. The only thing he didn't take was responsibility. Because to Darius, people were temporary. And Sheila, for all her strength, had become just another chapter in a long, dangerous game. By the time she realized it, he had already rewritten the rules. The wedding was never supposed to happen. Not in that place. Not between those two people. But it did. 2 weeks after Darius was moved into Unit 4B, a restricted cell block reserved for inmates with behavioral strikes, Sheila filed a special authorization form. It passed through legal, then HR, then the board. No one questioned it. No one dared. She was the warden. The rumors spread like wildfire. She's marrying him? Must be a joke. Bet he's playing her. Sheila ignored them all. The truth? She was already gone. Gone from the woman who once held herself together with discipline and silence. The woman who'd sworn never to be weak like her mother, who believed that rules could keep the past away. Now she stood in a makeshift chapel, actually a repurposed visitation room, with trembling hands and a racing heart. No gown, just a tailored navy blue suit. No ring bearer, just an armed guard outside the door. And across from her, Darius, shaved clean, hair lined up, orange jumpsuit pressed crisp, smiling like he already owned the future. There were no violins, no guests, just a prison chaplain who read the vows like a grocery list. "Do you, Sheila Monroe, take this man?" "I do." "Do you, Darius Kane, take this woman?" "I do." It took 6 minutes. When the papers were signed, she exhaled like someone who'd been holding her breath for a decade. The guards clapped. A few inmates watched through the glass, half in disbelief, half amused. Later that day, Darius was moved again, closer to admin block. "A convenience," she said. No one believed it. By nightfall, the facility was buzzing. One of the youngest wardens in the state had just married a convicted felon. But Sheila didn't care. She convinced herself it was love. He made her feel alive again. Seen, wanted, human. They wrote letters when she couldn't visit. Passed notes through friendly guards. Stolen moments became rituals. Coffee left on her desk. Coded messages and inspection reports. Shared glances during shift change. He told her he wanted to turn his life around. Go straight. Start a family. She let herself dream. She started looking at real estate. thought about quitting, thought about quiet towns and new names. But what she didn't see, what she refused to see, was how fast Darius was changing. The warmth in his letters turned cold. Requests grew bolder. First, it was extra yard time, then unmonitored calls, then burner phones. She said no at first, drew a line. He didn't yell, didn't threaten. He just got quiet. Then one day, he slipped a note under her door. If you don't do this for me, then what are we even? It was blackmail disguised as heartbreak. And it worked. She handed over the phone herself. That night, she lay awake. The walls felt tighter than ever. The man she married wasn't the man she thought he was. But it was too late to turn back. The prison had eyes everywhere. Cameras, rumors, whispers in staff hallways. The officers stopped saluting her. Inmates started calling her Mrs. Kane. And Darius? He thrived. He used her name like a key, unlocking favors, dodging punishment, collecting leverage. He played both sides. Told the inmates he ran her. Told her they didn't understand him, that it was them against the world. She tried to believe him. But deep down, doubt festered like rot. Then came the night of June 3rd. She got a call at 2:17 a.m. Darius had been involved in a fight. Another inmate, Rodney Teague, stabbed in the hallway 6 times. By morning, Rodney was in the infirmary, barely breathing. Sheila rushed to review the footage. What she saw turned her blood to ice. Darius wasn't the victim. He was the bait. He stood there, calm, unmoved, while the fight unfolded behind him. When the knife was drawn, he stepped back, let it happen, never flinched. And when the guards arrived, he mouthed one thing to the camera. Clean this up. She knew what he meant. She deleted the file. But that act, that single moment, crossed a line she could never uncross. She wasn't just protecting him anymore. She was part of it, an accomplice. 3 nights later, she found a letter in her office drawer. Her name typed on the front. No return address. Inside, how far would you go for him? Because we're watching. She panicked, pulled security logs, searched for leaks. Someone knew, someone inside. She confronted Darius. Did you do this? He shrugged. You said you were all in. That night, she didn't sleep. The following morning, she called in sick, sat on her apartment floor, staring at the framed photo of their wedding. Her fingers shook as she traced a smile. That same day, Darius requested a conjugal visit, his first as her legal husband. She approved it. The next 48 hours were a blur. The visit was scheduled for Friday. She showed up in civilian clothes, hair loose, face softer than usual. He greeted her like nothing was wrong, held her like he still cared, whispered that he loved her. They spent 2 hours together, behind locked doors. No guards, no cameras. But when she left that room, she didn't speak a word, just walked to her car, started the engine, and cried for the first time in years. The next morning, her body was found, slumped against her bathtub, gunshot wound to the chest. No sign of struggle. A single note beside her. I believed in him. The media erupted. Warden's forbidden love ends in blood. Prison marriage turns deadly. Was it suicide or something else? Darius was placed in solitary. He didn't flinch, didn't speak. When questioned, he simply said, she was too good for this place. But investigators weren't satisfied. They pulled tapes, checked phone logs, and what they found hinted at something far darker than heartbreak. Transfers approved under false names, private calls that never went recorded, suspicious deposits made to untraceable accounts, and letters, dozens of letters, some from Darius, some to someone else entirely, someone they still haven't identified, because maybe Sheila didn't kill herself. Maybe she found out something she wasn't supposed to, and maybe, just maybe, she tried to stop it. Too late. A marriage that began with a whisper in a locked room ended with a bang behind a bathroom door. What started as love became a weapon, and the woman who thought she could save him never saw the hand that pulled the trigger, whether it was his or her own. It was a Sunday morning when the 911 call came through. A neighbor heard something, One sharp sound, like a firecracker, followed by silence. The responding officers didn't expect much. A wellness check, maybe a domestic argument. But when they reached Sheila Monroe's apartment, the air was still unnervingly quiet. The door was unlocked. Inside, the shades were drawn, dishes stacked in the sink. A single lamp on in the living room, casting long shadows. Nothing about it screamed danger until they reached the bathroom. Sheila's body was curled on a white tile floor, back against the tub, legs stretched awkwardly like she tried to sit but never made it. A single gunshot wound just beneath her ribs. No sign of a break-in. No signs of a struggle. Next to her hand, a small piece of paper. A note, scrawled in black ink. I believed in him. The pen was still on the floor. The blood had dried around it. News spread fast. Sheila Monroe, one of the youngest female wardens in the state, with a spotless record and a law degree from Howard, was dead. The initial statement from the department was cautious. We are investigating all possibilities. But behind closed doors, they whispered the word no one wanted to say. Suicide. It made sense on the surface. A disgraced warden. A scandalous prison marriage. Career in jeopardy. Reputation in shambles. What else would explain it? But not everyone believed it. Detective Carmen Alvarez was assigned the case just hours after the body was found. She'd been with the department for 18 years. She'd seen suicide scenes. This didn't feel like one. The angle of the shot was too clean. The lack of gunpowder residue on Sheila's hand raised red flags. No fingerprints on the weapon. Not even Sheila's. And then there was the note. Short, vague, not like a goodbye, more like a statement, a warning. Carmen told her this wasn't just about heartbreak. She started digging. She requested surveillance from the prison, logs of Sheila's recent activity. Her calls, her emails. What she found told a different story. 3 days before her death, Sheila accessed a restricted server inside the prison's database. She downloaded inmate transfer records, disciplinary reports, and incident files, all connected to one name, Darius Kane. She also made a call to an unknown number. Twice. Both calls lasted under a minute. When they traced a number, it was registered to a prepaid burner, purchased in cash, 2 towns over. No owner, no leads. Still, Carmen pressed on. She questioned the prison staff. Many clammed up, but a few talked off the record. Sheila changed, one said. She was always by the book. Until him. He had something on her, another whispered. I think she was scared. It was enough to warrant a deeper look into Darius. On paper, he was just another inmate, convicted of armed robbery and assault, charismatic, intelligent, manipulative. But the deeper Carmen looked, the more questions she found. Darius had been transferred 5 times in 2 years, each move conveniently timed around facility audits. He had access to things most inmates didn't. Extra phone time, frequent visits, outside packages that somehow passed through security. And his name appeared dozens of times on contraband reports, burner phones, drugs, weapons, yet nothing ever stuck. Each incident was dismissed, ruled inconclusive, or lost in paperwork. Sheila had approved many of those dismissals. Now she was dead. And Darius? He hadn't said a word. When Carmen visited him at the prison, he was calm. Too calm. You think I killed my wife, detective? He asked with a smile. I think you know something you're not saying. He leaned back, fingers interlocked. I was in here. She was out there. Kind of hard to pull a trigger through walls. But not hard to pull strings, she said. He grinned. Everyone's at strings. When Carmen left the room, she felt it. That chill in the spine. The kind that told her he wasn't afraid. Not even a little. Back at headquarters, she received a tip. An anonymous envelope had been left at the front desk. Inside were printed screenshots, text messages, between Sheila and someone listed only as K. They weren't romantic. They were desperate. Sheila, you said he wouldn't find out. K, he wasn't supposed to. Sheila, I'm not safe anymore. K, then disappear. Disappearing was never in Sheila's nature. But exposing the truth, that was... Carmen now believed Sheila had discovered something that implicated not just Darius, but others. The messages hinted at a network, smuggling, bribery, possibly even staff involvement. And if Sheila had planned to talk, she had become a liability. The gun used in her death was traced to a burglary 6 months earlier, never recovered. No prints, no serial number. Professional work. The suicide theory unraveled fast. But without a clear suspect, the case stalled. Then came a break. A young corrections officer named Marcus Webb requested a meeting. He said he couldn't hold it in anymore. According to Marcus, Darius had been running a small empire inside the prison. Contraband, influence, intimidation. And Sheila had helped build it. Not because she wanted to, because she had to. She thought she could fix him, Marcus said. But when she tried to pull away, he reminded her what she'd done. Marcus had overheard a conversation between Darius and another inmate days before Sheila's death. She's slipping, Darius had said. She's talking to people. What if she runs her mouth? She won't. And if she does, then silence. Marcus never forgot the look Darius gave after. Cold, decided, like a man who'd already made a plan. But a plan like that couldn't be carried out from a cell, which meant someone helped. Someone on the outside. The investigation widened. Names were redacted, files sealed, and one by one, those closest to Sheila began disappearing, resigning, transferring, refusing interviews. The deeper Carmen dug, the clearer it became. This wasn't about love. This was about leverage, power, control, and somewhere in that twisted maze of affection and manipulation, Sheila Monroe became disposable. Her body was found with one wound, one note, one lie, but the truth was scattered across hard drives, through whispers in prison halls, between the lines of redacted reports. And the lie was simple, that she killed herself because of heartbreak. No, she died because she got too close to something bigger than she could control. And someone made sure she would never speak again. The courtroom was quiet, not the kind of quiet that brings peace, but the kind that comes just before something breaks. Every cough felt louder. Every whispered shuffle echoed off the marble. And at the center of it all, Darius Kane sat with that same look he always wore, calm, unreadable, untouched. It had been 10 months since Sheila Monroe's death. 10 long months of investigations, sealed warrants, whispered testimony, and missing files. 10 months of questions and no clear answers. But now, finally, Darius was on trial. Not for murder. There was no gun, no prints, no video. Just a chain of shadows, strung together by people who were scared to speak too loudly. Instead, he faced charges for racketeering, smuggling, and conspiracy tied to a prison corruption ring. They called it Operation Edenfall. What started as whispers became affidavits. What Sheila may have tried to expose now lay in cold court documents stamped Exhibit A. But there was one thing missing. Sheila. She wasn't here to testify. She wasn't here to explain why a woman with power, a law degree, and a future fell for a man behind bars. Why she risked it all, then died in silence. Prosecutors painted Darius as a predator, a manipulator who used affection like a weapon. Defense attorneys claimed he was misunderstood, a victim of a system designed to swallow black men, and spit them out branded for life. They said the real story was one of love, betrayal, and bad choices, not murder. The jury sat frozen, their expressions unreadable. But Carmen Alvarez knew. She had spent almost a year piecing together the puzzle Sheila left behind. And she wasn't alone, because Sheila's sister, Rhonda, was in the gallery every single day. She never missed a session. She never looked away from Darius. She wore the same black blazer Sheila had worn at her first warden ceremony. It didn't matter how many reporters shoved mics in her face, how many times people warned her to stay out of it. She was going to see this through. Sheila wasn't weak, she once told the press. She was human. She was loyal. And he destroyed her. As the final witnesses took the stand, former guards, snitches, even an ex-inmate turned confidential informant, the same threads kept appearing. Darius knew things he shouldn't. He had people in his pocket. He built power behind walls. And Sheila, she was both his weapon and his shield. But still, nothing linked him directly to her death. No gun, no message, just silence. And sometimes silence is louder than anything. When the verdict came down, the courtroom held its breath. Guilty on all federal charges related to the smuggling ring, but not guilty in connection to Sheila's death. That count had been quietly dropped before trial. Lack of evidence, the judge had ruled. Hearsay and speculation. Darius turned to face the gallery once the verdict was read. Not to look at the jurors, not to the judge, but to Rhonda. He smiled, slow, deliberate, like he knew something they didn't. Rhonda didn't flinch. That night, headlines lit up. Prison kingpin convicted, but Warden's death still unsolved. Justice, some called it. At least he was off the streets. At least his empire had crumbled, but others weren't so sure. A woman was dead. A brilliant, complicated woman who tried to find love and got swallowed whole. And no one was being held accountable for that. Months passed. Darius was moved to a high-security federal prison out of state. He'd served 30 years without parole. The public moved on, but some people didn't. Carmen Alvarez filed to reopen Sheila's death investigation as a cold case. She believed someone out there still had the truth. Maybe a guard who helped smuggle the weapon in. Maybe someone who disposed of the evidence. Maybe even the mysterious Kay. Sheila had texted just before she died. The messages were never traced. The phone vanished. But Carmen wasn't done. She took time off, quietly began interviewing former staff, piecing together what happened in those final days. And then something strange happened. One of Sheila's old burner phones, previously thought destroyed, showed up in a pawn shop 3 towns over. The man who brought it in said he found it in a box of junk at a flea market, but when investigators pulled the data, they found something chilling. A voice memo, undated, undelivered, just 41 seconds long. Sheila's voice, calm, clear. I know what I've done. I know what I let happen. But if anything happens to me, please know it wasn't an accident. I tried to stop it. I tried to leave, but it was too late. If you're hearing this, he didn't let me go. The file was entered into evidence in the reopened inquiry. But legally, it wasn't enough. No names, no threats, just fear wrapped in confession. Still, for Rhonda, it was something. A voice, a goodbye, a truth. She had it framed, transcribed, and mounted above her fireplace. She said it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about memory. Because in the end, justice didn't come in a single moment. Not with a gavel, not with a guilty verdict. It came in slow waves, unfolding through testimonies, hidden files, broken silences. It came with the realization that sometimes the justice system can only punish what it can prove, not what it knows. And Darius Kane? He was gone, locked away. But his influence, his power, it lingered. Rumors swirled that he still had people working for him inside, that he sent letters, that he smiled every time Sheila's name was mentioned on the news. But those were just whispers. And maybe that was the cruelest part, that in the end, a brilliant woman who tried to fight back, who thought love could heal broken men, was reduced to a case file, an unsolved mystery, and a scar across a prison system built to bury its own shame. Justice? Maybe. Or maybe it was just tragedy. Either way, the world kept turning. But for those who loved Sheila Monroe, the silence she left behind would never stop echoing.